Welcome to episode 1 of Is the Woman Well? I am your guide as we explore this question beneath the questions. I am Quadeera the Power Teart, founder of FeelWell, publisher and editor in chief at FeelWell magazine. At FeelWell, there's one question that is guiding everything we're doing. And that question is the woman well? I've learned something over my years on this planet, and it is that the questions we ask are rarely the deepest questions. They are just the first layer, the question on the surface. But behind every meaningful question is another question wanting to be explored. I also learned this from Reverend Dr. Michael Beckwith, who teaches that behind every answer is a question wanting to be asked and explored. So, this is not a show that simply gives women answers. It's a space where we ask the questions that have the power to change the way we see ourselves, our businesses, and the lives we're creating. So, in every episode, we are going to explore the questions beneath the questions. And today, that question is, who owns your life? This is not about the woman who's smiling. This is not about the woman who has every box checked or the woman that everyone is telling you're doing such a great job, even though she is. I'm asking something much, much deeper. I want you to ask yourself a question that has nothing to do with your physical health, okay? Who is authoring your life? Because I believe one of the greatest tragedy because I believe one of the greatest tragedies happening to women today isn't burnout, believe it or not. It's also not exhaustion, even though this is a part of our conversations. It's not even overwhelm. It's that so many women are living lives that are being authored by identities that they never consciously chose. So women have lost ownership of their lives. Some women never even knew that they had this power, this authorship, this ownership over their own life to begin with. Sounds crazy, I know. They were conditioned from the very beginning to believe that their value lived in everyone else's fulfillment before their own. And until a woman recognizes the invisible identities that have been unconsciously authoring her life, she cannot consciously author the future that she longs for. So, this is why we're going to keep asking this question: is the woman well? Every day I wake up just like millions of other women across this planet, just like you watching this video, and I intend to take care of myself. I intend to be my healthiest self, my most productive self, my best self in the world. But I also chose a life that isn't only mine to take care of. I chose partnership, family, responsibility, leadership. So every morning, I don't just wake up responsible for me alone. I wake up responsible for others, for other people. People to feed, people to nurture, people to encourage, people who need something from me before I ever get to myself. And I love them. I love having family. I love what I do. I want to make something very clear. This isn't resentment. This isn't me complaining about serving the people I love. And I know that's not what your intentions are as well, even though, people might make you feel like that's what it is. And you're not speaking up for yourself because you don't want to seem or sound ungrateful, especially if you have things that others are longing for. You have family, you have children, or you have a great career. I understand. And so I know that this isn't about resentment. You would gladly make all the fresh juices, just like I would. You would gladly meal prep for the family, just like I would. Show up for your family and pour into those people that you care about. This is not the problem for most women. The problem is much, much deeper than this. Because somewhere between waking up and going to bed, I've realized that my day didn't belong to me. And as I watch the women that I've coached throughout the years, friends of mine, family of mine, I realize that this unsettled thing is happening throughout most of women's days. And after you've sat down at the end of your day, looked back over everything you've accomplished, as most of us do, and somehow you have this feeling that you still accomplish nothing for yourself, then you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say, who owns your life? So here's the pattern that I've noticed. Women are not waking up intending to abandon themselves. We're waking up intending to love, intending to serve, to nurture, to lead. But somewhere throughout the day, this service is quietly becoming self-abandonment. And because it's not happening all at one time, it feels like it's normal. It feels like it's responsible. Like this is what a good woman is supposed to be doing. Until until one day you look up and you realize that you've become the manager of everyone else's life while no one is authoring yours. So many women who absolutely love working, love building, love creating, love solving problems, love making money, love leading, and love bringing ideas to life, building something that didn't exist yesterday, creating impact. But somewhere along the way, an identity has been placed on you that told you you shouldn't enjoy those things quite so much. That if you're too ambitious over servanthood, too driven over marriage, too focused over family, too interested in business and money, then somehow you are becoming less feminine, less nurturing, less of a woman. And so what do, ladies? We shrink. Not because you want to, but because somewhere you learned you were supposed to. And that's where the soul of a woman begins to cry. Because now what we have are two women living inside of the same body. The woman you were conditioned to become, and the woman that your soul is calling you to become. One was built by expectations, the other was born with a purpose. And one has spent years asking, what do they need? And the other has been quietly whispering, but what do you want? That tension, that pulling, that quiet grief, it's exhausting. I know. And it's not because you're weak. It's because you're trying to live from two identities at the same time. Then night comes after that whole full day. And this is the part that no one is talking about. When you're sitting down at the end of your day and you think about everything you've accomplished, how you made fresh juice for your family, you meal prepped for everyone, You answered emails, you took calls, took a family member to the grocery store, took your kids to a birthday party, cared for all the people you loved. You honestly lived a full day. But was it full of you? That's the question. Because one day, that isn't the danger. The danger is that those days accumulate. One day becomes 1 month, 1 month becomes 1 year becomes 10 years, then 20, then 30, until one day you look up and realize you really did build a beautiful life, but it was beautiful for everyone else. So when did you stop building yours, your dreams, your vision from your heart? What was fully satisfying for you outside of other people? That is one of the deepest griefs a woman can ever experience. Not because she didn't love the people she served, not because she regrets loving her family, not because she wishes she hadn't shown up. The grief is much deeper than that. The grief is realizing that somewhere along the journey, she slowly disappeared. She didn't disappear in one decision. It wasn't from one decision. She disappeared one day at a time. One postponed dream at a time. One delayed desire at a time. One, I'll get to myself tomorrow. Until tomorrow quietly becomes years and years becomes your whole life. And that's why for women, this isn't really about work-life balance or time management. It's about authorship. Because ownership always precedes fulfillment. You cannot feel fulfilled in a life that you do not own. Because if we never understand why this happens, we're going to keep trying to fix it with better schedules, better planners, better books, better time management, when that's actually not the problem. The problem began long before your calendar ever even filled up. It began with your conditioning. Here's what I've observed after more than 15 years of coaching women, building businesses, and helping women step into leadership. Women don't lose themselves overnight. They lose themselves through conditioning. Little by little, expectation by expectation, identity by identity, until one day we wake up living from identities that we never consciously chose. Somewhere along that path, we learned that being a good woman meant putting ourselves last, that being a good mother meant sacrificing your every desire, that being a good wife meant supporting his dream before your own, that being a good leader meant making yourself smaller so that other people wouldn't feel uncomfortable. Many of us inherited these identities before we ever had the opportunity to choose them, right? So that's why one of the very first questions I've asked my clients for the past 15 years is one of the simplest ones. What do you want? It sounds like such an easy question, but for many women, it's the hardest question they've ever been asked because they've spent most of their lives asking different questions. Those questions you probably ask yourself on a daily basis. What do your children need? What does your husband need? What do your clients need? What does your employer need? What do your parents need? What does everyone else need from me? Very few women have ever been given permission to ask, what do I want? And for some of you watching this will be the first time that you've answered that question. And for some of you, it's going to be the first time that you've even believed that you're allowed to ask yourself that question. Here's what I know. Women didn't lose their value. They misplaced it. They placed it into caregiving, into productivity. We placed it into achievement, into sacrifice, into service, into motherhood, into being everything for everyone else, until we forgot our own value was never supposed to live outside of ourselves. When your value lives everywhere except inside of you, my girl, your life eventually belongs to everyone except you. And that's exactly why ownership matters. Because ownership is always going to precede fulfillment. You cannot fulfill in a life, you cannot feel fulfilled in a life that you do not own. I've experienced this in my own life, which is what prompted me to make this video. I've walked into business rooms where, despite everything I bring to the table, despite my strategy, vision, leadership, ideas, I've quietly found myself being positioned into the support roles of men who have also been conditioned to place my value there. The administrative roles, the clerical roles, the woman helping someone else build their vision. And I remember realizing this isn't just happening in business, this is a pattern. How many women have spent years becoming exceptional at building everyone else's dream while quietly postponing their own? How many women have become so dependable that they've become invisible? How many women have become so good at supporting that somewhere they stop leading themselves? This is why I don't believe women have a productivity problem. I believe we have an authorship problem. We've become managers of everybody else's life without realizing we stopped authoring our own. So here's the truth. Leadership, it doesn't begin when people follow you. It begins the moment you begin leading yourself. Because if you cannot give yourself permission, you'll spend your whole life waiting for somebody else to. If you cannot protect your own vision, you're going to spend your whole life managing everybody else's. So this isn't about becoming selfish. That's the wrong word. This is about becoming sovereign. There's a difference. Selfishness says only I matter, and sovereignty says I matter too. So it doesn't ask you, sovereignty doesn't ask you to love your family less. It asks you to stop leaving yourself out of the love you so freely give to everyone else. Because good women have mastered pouring into everyone else around them. The tragedy is that so many good women forgot to include themselves in the good. And that's the invitation that I'm offering to you here. Not to become someone new, but to remember the woman that was there before the conditioning ever told her who she was supposed to be. So if you're sitting here in the morning or at night and you're realizing that somewhere along the way you've stopped authoring your own life, I don't want you to leave this conversation feeling guilty. I want you to leave feeling aware, because awareness is where authorship is going to begin. And I want to invite you into two simple practices that I use, not because they're magical, but because they're honest. The first one is this. Sit down with a journal dedicated to you and your dreams, If you don't have one, you can grab a sheet of paper. But there's something powerful that happens when you slow down enough to write by hand. I know you've heard that before. Handwriting is going to engage your brain differently than typing, and it's going to slow down your thinking, deepen your reflection, and reveal truths to you that have been buried beneath the noise of everyday life. So if you don't already have a journal dedicated to you and your dreams, I want you to get one. Not for your grocery list, not for your work, not for everybody else's schedule. A journal that belongs just to you and your dream. A journal that belongs to your future. A journal that belongs to the woman living inside of you, stuck in the dimension of invisibility, screaming to be seen, heard, and recognized. You can order a FeelWell quarterly journal if you don't have one at feelwellmagazine.com, because you should have a private writing space dedicated to you and this beautiful vision of a life and business that you are creating. I created it because I believe every woman deserves that sacred place to meet herself again. Okay, so then at the top of the page, I want you to write down that one question. What do I want? Not what should I want? What do they expect me to want? What do I want? Be honest. Nobody else is there with you. Be honest. So for some of you, this will be the first truly honest conversation you've had with yourself in years about what you want. And for others, it's going to be the first time you've ever believed it. So the second practice is going to be this. Also with that journal, I want you to take ownership of your day. Not all of it, just the beginning. Ask yourself and write it down in your journal every morning for the next 90 days. What is the one thing I can do today that builds my life? Before I spend the rest of my day building everyone else's, right? Because you're going to get to them. What can I do for myself to build my life? The thing inside of you that you're not telling anybody about, that will bring you great joy and great fulfillment. And I want you to remember this. Margins are not wasted space. You've got to create these intentional margins around your life. Because if you don't, they're going to consume every inch of you. So I know you're used to looking at profit margins and all the margins in business, but now I'm asking you to look at the margins for yourself that you need to place around your life to shape your capacity, your permissions, boundaries. And the boundaries, as you've seen across these social media streets, are not always to keep people out, but it's also to keep some things in and hold some things more sacred, more close. So, as I was sitting in my bed last night, feeling frustrated, not because I had a bad day, I actually had a very beautiful day. I did all the things that I mentioned in this video, took people to the grocery store, took people to birthday parties, made fresh juices, meal prep for the week. I did all of these beautiful things, pouring into the people that I love and cared about. I really and truly showed up, just like I know you do every day. But as I sat down at the end of the day, I could feel something inside of me saying that I didn't do the things that mattered to me and for me. The vision that I had for my day, I let it get crowded and bombarded by what everyone else needed. And this is how I found myself putting myself last in my day. And as I reflected on that, I thought to myself, I know so many other women who need this reminder and this permission to witness how this happens so slowly, that sometimes you don't even realize it's happening. So the vision I had for my day, it wasn't lived. And I said to myself, I refuse to let another day end that way. So even though I didn't create this first thing in the morning, I said I'm not going to abandon myself again. So this is a series that I'm supposed to be doing on a weekly basis called Is the Woman Well? And so this is me keeping my commitment to myself, choosing not to abandon myself again, even if I'm reading off of a screen. I took my time to curate these words, to curate this message, because I could feel in my heart that I was doing a disservice to myself. And when doing a disservice to yourself, I know that it's also truly doing a disservice to other people, other women. So I chose not to abandon myself again. I chose to honor my voice, to build something that belonged to me, because I can spend, just like you, my life building his dream, building their dreams. But at the end of my life, I have to know that I built mine too. So when I ask, is the woman well? I'm asking something much deeper than whether she's healthy or not. I'm asking, is she becoming wealthier? Is she protecting her energy? Is she living with longevity in mind? And does she feel like the leader of her own life? Because a woman who doesn't lead her own life will spend her entire life managing everyone else's. And I don't want that to be mine. I want to be at the end of my life knowing that I served others, I cared for others, I loved others, but that I also deeply, passionately, unapologetically, profoundly loved me too. This isn't just about us becoming more productive. It's about becoming the author of your own life again. Nobody is coming to rescue you. No one is going to hand you permission to become the woman you already know you're meant to be. You have to claim your life. You have to protect your life. You have to author your life. Because here's what I believe: a woman cannot consciously author her future until she recognizes those invisible identities that have been unconsciously authoring her life. And so once you can see them, you'll begin to choose differently. One decision, one morning, one night, one day at a time. Because life just cannot be surrendered to just taking it one day at a time. It can also be reclaimed. So I want you to take these episodes and allow them to awaken the well woman inside of you. Become wealthier, protect your energy, choose longevity, lead your own life. Because if the woman isn't well, the family won't be, the business won't be, the community won't be, society will not be. The shift that is happening right now in this generation is happening through the women. But it cannot happen through women who have surrendered authorship of their own lives. So I'm going to keep on asking this question: is the woman well? Are you well? If this conversation spoke to something you've been feeling but haven't been able to put into words, I'd love for you to share it with another woman who needs to hear it. And before you leave, I want you to answer at least one question in the comments. And that is, what do you want? Not what the world wants, not what everyone expects from you, but what do you want? Because I have a feeling that this is where your journey back to yourself begins. Feel well.